Thank you for joining me on the Get What You Want podcast, where getting what you want isn't always what you think it is. My wish for you is that this show will create an awareness within yourself of what you really want and the possibility of getting it. Let's go create. My guest today is Emerald Greenforest. She is the founder and lead visionary of Creative Age Consulting Group, the Wealthy Life Mentor, and an internationally known speaker and transformation artist. Emerald is a Be the Change Movement to Watch award winner and one of America's premier experts. She is the creator of the Apple Top 50 ranked Men on Purpose podcast, which she recently sold, and the creator, executive producer, and host of the Apple #1 internationally ranked Wickedly Smart Women podcast. Emerald's clients are high-achieving leaders who are called to be the vanguard of the creative age. Welcome, Emerald.
Thank you so much for having me, Shirley. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I met you a couple years at the New Media Summit, and I just loved who you were. And I know by reading your bio and learning more about you that you've created something even better and different during this time that I've been away from you. So I just want you to tell me kind of what you're doing now and, talk about the podcast that you just sold, because that's the one that I knew you from, and then what you have going on right now.
Sure. Well, I think the thing that I really want to underscore is that we're always in evolution, right, Shirley? So no matter where we are in our journey, we are invited, especially women entrepreneurs. We're always invited into evolving ourselves to the next thing, to tapping into our creative power. And, I think right now, the important thing to underscore is like culturally and globally, we're actually being asked to adapt, right? We're being asked to evolve. We're being asked to do new things. And so, I started the Wickedly Smart Women podcast about a year after Men on Purpose launched. I said, okay, well, now I'm going to do some work with women as well. I had my previous to Men on Purpose, I had actually had an 8 to 10 year business where I was mostly serving women entrepreneurs and helping them feel great speaking and powerful asking for money. And then when I started my podcasting journey, Men on Purpose came through, and I just got really called to serve men. And what ended up happening with that podcast is it actually became a very powerful healing journey for me. Because I had spent most of my life in relationships with men where I felt either abused or, there was addiction involved, or I felt really alienated. Like I just didn't get them. They didn't get me. And it took some pretty traumatic experiences in my life before I finally woke up to the fact that, I was the single unifying thread in all of those relationships. And so when I got called to do the Men on Purpose podcast, I was like, why am I being called to do that? Right. But I follow my guidance. I follow the calling. I've been guided by spirit, GBS. I've been on the GBS system since probably 2001. And so when the calling came to do that podcast, I just said yes. And then ultimately it became clear that I was the work, my own inner work, and the work that the podcast was doing in the world, that I had come to a place where I was feeling complete with it. And so at the last New Media Summit, it just so happened that there was somebody there who was expressing into the mastermind group of the icons after the event. He was expressing some stuff, and I just was like, I wonder if I should offer the podcast to him for sale. And so I did, and he said yes, and we made a deal, and took about a month to get all of the stuff transferred over, and now he has it in his stewardship. And I started Wickedly Smart Women probably 6 months before that. So it just became clear that I was complete with Men on Purpose, and I had a huge healing as a result of it. Like every single episode was like a healing experience for me.
That is awesome. I know I also worked with men before I wrote my book for women. And so it was interesting because that kind of almost sounds like a little bit of the same path. I worked in Major League Baseball, and, all of my clients were men. And I realized that I needed to do work with women. And now I work with both again, but for a long, like I needed that time with men and then I needed that time with women. And now I'm like to the middle where I have a really good understanding of both. And it sounds like that you're in that on that same type of path. So that's awesome. I love it. Tell
Yeah.
me
Well,
about your new podcast.
yeah, so Wickedly Smart Women is really a place where my intention is to elevate, celebrate, and spotlight what I call wickedly smart women. And it's pretty much like the mirror image of the Men on Purpose podcast. The purpose is really to attract both wickedly smart women to be guests, but also wickedly smart women to be listeners, or wickedly smart women in the making, for those listeners to really give them an opportunity to know that it's possible. Whatever it is, it's possible. If
I
it's
love
possible
that.
for me, it's possible for you. If it's possible for you, it's possible for me. And so I have such a wide variety of guests. I love interviewing. I do a great job at it. It's one of my gifts. I'm very, very gifted. I'm wickedly smart. So when you find things that you really enjoy and that you're gifted in, it's a great thing. And so I've had so many amazing, wickedly smart women on the show, marketers, health people. Most recent episode that I had was a woman who started the Grow Network, and she teaches people how to grow half their own food in the backyard.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's just such amazing, amazing, amazing people in the world. And so I love the show because I'm learning, right? I'm also getting the opportunity to say, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. So I planted some peas on my back porch after I did that interview.
I love that.
Yeah. And
Wow.
and the other thing that's clear to me, I love what you said about you spent some time working with men, then you started working with women. I was the opposite. I did a lot of work with women, then I worked with men. Now it's like a blend of both things. But another thing that's coming for me, I have a lot of podcast ideas. So I'm definitely thinking about doing a couple, different potential new podcasts, but I'm also in a creation zone where I'm helping people to really craft a life for themselves that is what I call the wealthy life. And the wealthy
Mm.
life is a life that's a work of art. So for me as a creator, my wealthy life includes creating new stuff because I'm like always creating, whether it's a piece of art or whether it's peas on the back porch or whether it's a new podcast or whether it's a certification program, which I'm also in the process of doing right now. I'm creating a certification program to help people become certified intuitive advisors and to use their wicked smarts to both the intelligence as well as the intuitive smarts to be able to help more people in the world, because we're in a time of really powerful changes, and
For sure.
yeah,
And
we need help.
I think that I know that when
Mm-hmm.
people think about wealth, they think
Mm-hmm.
about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I I mean, obviously this is the Get What You Want podcast. And I know that society kind of creates this thing of what you want, right? And one of those things that people want is money and
Mm-hmm.
wealth. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we hear money and wealth, but people really put those together as the same thing. So can you speak into a little bit more about that? I love the idea that it's like a healthy life or wealthy life mentor,
Mm-hmm.
healthy, wealthy, same thing,
Mm-hmm.
life mentor. And I know that that's how I see my life is wealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's a sufficient amount of money, but there's also so many other things that to me is wealth. And that's,
Yeah.
like that's our health and our wellness and my family and,
Well,
my
you're
everything.
telling you're
So,
saying exactly what, almost to a T, exactly what my definition of wealth
well, I
is.
want to hear your definition. So
So
tell me
I
more.
actually use the word thief. I use the word thief,
Hmm.
THIEF, to have a little mnemonic device to define what wealth is for me. And wealth for me is the sum total of all of the resources that we have available to us. And it's helpful to use the word thief because when we're not aligned with our own wealthy life by design, then we are actually stealing from one or more of these places. We're
Mm,
stealing from ourselves. We are thieving from ourselves. So it's time. Time is the first aspect of a wealthy life, how we spend our time, who we spend our time with, what we spend our time doing. Health is the second, which you've already mentioned. The I is our imagination, our intellect, our intuition, right? That's a resource. Our imagination is a huge resource. And that includes our intellect and intuition that are kind of married. Our imagination is where our intellect and our intuition are married. And then E, which is like 1/5 of this equation, E is the exchange of energy, the exchange of time or value for money. So it's only 20% for me. A wealthy life, I'm only focusing 20% of my attention on the money piece, the exchange piece, because otherwise I'm stealing from all these other wonderful places. And then the F is fun with our friends, family, and fellow travelers on the journey. So my definition of wealth is really the sum total of all of those resources that we have available to us.
Wow, I feel like we could just stop right now. And I think that's such a beautiful explanation, because definitely, money, health, family, but like to bring that other thing in of the intellect, intuition. What was the third I? Imagination. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So imagination is such a huge thing. I think that children these days really have lacked in that because of, the video games, the social media, the immediate stimuli. And I've noticed that a lot with my younger kids and their friends and that type of thing, that imagination was such a big part for me. And it still is. Like, I still daydream. I still imagine what a vacation is going to be. I have a lot more enjoyment in the planning of a vacation. I totally enjoy taking them too, but I just love the planning. Like, I have as much enjoyment out of that. And also same with my business. I am also creating an online course right now. And just the excitement and enjoyment of doing that, of doing my podcast, of writing my books, all of these things I could never do without that daydreaming and imagination and the intuitive and intellect. I'm really loving this. So when someone comes to you, I know that you work with a lot of high achieving individuals, and I believe, like in my experience with people like that, they're very heavy in one of those areas usually, right? So tell me, when someone comes to you that isn't balanced in these, what do you, take me kind of through what you would do with those?
Are you feeling stuck in your relationship? Do you feel you need more? Whether it be more time, attention, security, gifts, intimacy, or companionship, your partner is likely experiencing something similar. Yet both of you are not sure how to fix it. In Shirley Baldwin's best-selling book, Get What You Want From Your Man, she will show you how to get all of this and more. Get What You Want From Your Man is available nationwide through all major bookstores, Amazon.com, and through her website, www.getwhatyouwantguru.com.
Yeah, well, great. So what I do is I actually have my Wealthy Life Method, right? My Wealthy Life Method is a 7-step process that I take people through to help them. And if they're imbalanced in one or more of those areas, generally speaking, where I see imbalance is in the I, where they are more leaning towards their intellect and further away from their intuition. So they've pushed their intuition off to one side. And so the work there is to really bring those two into balance so that then you can get to the imagination, because the imagination is really that place where both intellect and intuition are melded in this beautiful divine union. And that's where magic happens. I mean, the word magic is almost in the word imagination. IMAGI, right?
Yes.
I am a magi. I am a magical person, right? I'm a magical being. And, to the point that you made about the younger generation being completely absorbed, like, our imagination is very visual for most people. Like, when we're imagining, we're dreaming, we're seeing with our inner vision, right? We're really seeing. Like, when I just came back from camping, and I love the prep as much as I love the camping trip too, right? Like you said, you love
Yes.
planning the vacation. Because when I'm planning, I'm actually using my imagination. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a tent and I'm going to put my sleeping bag here and I need to have these clothes. And oh, I see myself in my bathing suit. And like, you're literally seeing yourself into whatever it is that you're creating. And so in our culture, the vision has now been locked onto a screen, right? A lot of people have gotten locked onto a screen, and so it causes our inner vision to actually start to atrophy. So I do a lot of work with people in that area, the eye, and then the energy exchange and fun, those two areas. But you know, when you're off in one, you're going to have, it's a holistic thing.
Right.
Shirley, you know, if you're off in one, you're going to have problems in the others. But what I also see is in the energy exchange, a lot of times they're so focused on the money that they lose sight of the fun, or they lose their health, or they, you know, they have no more time left because they've consumed all of their time with the creation of the money piece. So when I work with people through the Wealthy Life Method, the first thing we do is we look at what's not working. You know, we go through a process. I take them through a process. Step one is wake up and walk away from what's not working, right?
Easier said than done.
It's
Yes.
totally easier said than done. So one way I help people in this particular step is I actually give them a clear definition of the ways that they are warding off their wealthy life. And there are 5 ways that we ward off wealth. One is we worry, and that's how we get hooked up in that, you know, money thing. One is we worry. 2 is we waffle. We can't make a decision. Like, oh, should I go over here? Should I go over here? Should I take that cruise for $10,000, or should I invest $10,000 into my entrepreneurship? And you're like, cruise ship, entrepreneurship, cruise ship, entrepreneurship. And before you know it, both have gone, right?
Yes.
Both have taken, and you're still sitting there, right? So waffling is the second way that we ward off wealth. Withdrawing is the third way. That's looks like, okay, we get ourselves out there, we go to maybe an event or something like the New Media Summit, and we get all excited and we have our imagination triggered and we're like, oh my God, I could make a podcast, or I could be on stage, or I could speak, or I could make a course, or I could do all these things. And then we go home and we pull back, we pull our energy back. And when we withdraw, that wards off wealth, right? And then the fourth way that we ward off wealth is when we are waiting on. And waiting on is an interesting one because particularly for women, a lot of times for women, when we're waiting on, it's like we're waiting on the handsome prince to show up and rescue us. That's one way of waiting on. The other way of waiting on is we're so busy waiting on everyone else. So we're waiting on our kids, we're waiting on our husband, we're waiting on our boss, we're waiting on our clients. We're like a servant rather than in service, right?
Right.
That wards off wealth as well. When you're like either completely consumed with people pleasing and taking care of everyone else, or you're sitting there like, when's my handsome prince going to come and just put that glass slipper on my foot and carry me away, right? And then the final one is whining, where you get in with often a group of people, often with women, it's whining over wine. And you sit together and you're just like having a bitch session. And what happens when you're doing that is you're actually, not only are you bringing your own lower vibration, like complaint energy into this group, but the whole group starts to collude with your story. So they add their energy to it. And then if you're drinking wine on top of it, that's lowering everybody's vibration. And that's just a nasty mess. So we look at those things and see where is it that the person that I'm working with is kind of most activating those ways that we ward off wealth. And then you can make a choice so that you can wake up and walk away from all of that.
I love this. I love this so much because so much of it resonates with me. And you have the words and the, method that kind of goes along with that, because I definitely see the bashing, bashing of husbands, bashing. That's even in my book, we talk about that. And, I've been to many places where I talk a lot about searching for, you get what you are looking for, right? So if we're searching for negativity, we're going to have an abundance of it. If we're searching for positivity, we're going to have an abundance of it. And I think a lot of people, they just don't realize that what they're looking for, they're getting. So they're actually recreating all of the disasters that are around them. And oftentimes I'm in like a situation and I'm thinking, like I'll have a moment of woe is me. And I just think like, I have to remind myself, like, what would I tell my clients? Who am I being that has this happening around me, or has this person treating me that way, or has, anything that's going on? Like, who am I being that has that? And so I love that you talk about this. I know, like with my podcast, when I came home from New Media Summit, I didn't even go there wanting to create a podcast. And I came home, I met a bunch of friends there, and I got all the equipment that I needed. And then I sat on it for like 6 months because I had no clue what to do. And it's very easy to withdraw, right? It's very easy to do that, to step back and think, okay, I'm going to do that eventually. I'm going to do that eventually. And I have to come back to my own coaching a lot and realize, well, what would I have my clients do, right? And so I got up each morning, I set an intention, I learned how to do this thing. I put all the work and time and energy and sewed all the pieces together. I hired the people that I needed to hire to help me. And I created it and I launched it. And it was the same thing with my book. And it's the same thing with this online course. I feel like this interview was meant to be today, because I've been working so hard on this course, but I haven't launched it. And I need to take a massive imperfect action and just do it, because I'm waiting for everything to be perfect. I'm waiting for all the little pieces to, I want it to look perfect and be perfect. And I, want to make sure that all my videos are perfect. And it's hard because they're never going to be perfect. I know that. And I keep thinking, well, maybe just a little bit better, a little bit. So this interview with you is making me so happy, because I think I'm getting this coaching right now of, I need to not wait for everything to be perfect. And I need to just get this launched. And so thank you for that explanation. And I think a lot of people are resonating with that right now.
Well, let me also say a couple of things. First, around the whining, it's important to not deny if you are having a challenge. However, it is equally important to get help for the challenge where you invest with a mentor, a coach, a therapist, whatever, rather than having the whining session with, your girlfriends or your guy friends or whatever. Right. So I want to be clear that I don't want people to think that I'm saying you can never complain. What I am saying is be mindful, because those complaints are actually showing you what you don't want.
Yes.
But if you energize it with a bunch of other people's energy, that brings everything down, and there's no clear path to walking away from what you don't want, then you're just going to create more of the same, like you said. So that's one thing. And then the second thing on the waiting on, one thing that I want to just drop into your pond, Shirley, on the waiting on, right? Again, if you find yourself waiting on, that's usually a sign that it's time to invest with a mentor or a coach or a therapist, or to get help, to ask for help. If there's one thing that I wish that I had been given more awareness of in my own 20 plus year, 30 plus year entrepreneurial journey, is asking for help is okay. Not only is it okay, it's actually really wise to ask for help. And this whole idea of perfectionism is actually selfishness, because the concern is more about how you look than whether or not you are actually helping someone.
So true. So true. I actually have a part in my online course that I'm waiting to launch because of that. I have one of my modules talks about coaching, because I am a coach and I have a lot of clients that have come to me, and I've been able to give them that push. But but it's really hard for me sometimes to see it from the outside, right? When you're inside, you can't see it from the outside. And so I had a book coach. I had someone help me that kind of coached me through my podcast setup. I've definitely had a coach with this creation of this course. And yeah, at first you're kind of like, I want to be able to do it all myself. And if I'm not doing it all myself, am I even worthy of teaching this or creating this? And I think it's important, right, for us to know where our talents lie and I realize that I've done so many things that have taken my time and energy that I didn't have to do, that I was able to, like delegate out. And at first I thought I had to do everything. And so yeah, you're right. I totally agree with you. And I see it when you're saying that, like, oh my gosh, it's time for me to just do something and quit worrying about that. Because when we are worried about ourselves, it takes away from all the service that we're creating for other people. And there are people that I know need my course right now, but I just have been dragging my feet a little bit. So I agree. I really want to emphasize what you said about it's okay. It's even more than okay to hire out people like you and I, and, all these coaches who are really, really able to just see all your goodness from the outside and be able to guide you through that. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things a mentor does is they actually see who you are in your highest potential.
Yes.
Right? They are able to see when you're churning, right? When you're churning and burning. Often we churn and we burn our credit cards, or we burn our health, or we burn and we're churning and burning because we're actually indulging our inner 3-year-old. It's like, I want to do it myself.
Yes.
And when I first got into this business, like I was in the real estate business for 20 years. And when I left the real estate business and got into this business, I literally taught myself HTML to figure out how to do my own website 20 years ago. Right. And in retrospect, it would have been a different path for me, but it's the path that I took. So, but in retrospect, if I could exercise my asking for help muscle even more, that would be the thing I would tell my younger self. Just ask for more help.
That's
and
awesome.
Be willing to invest.
That's awesome. I want to, like, usually at the end of my show, I always ask my guests what it is that they would do differently. And I love that as what you would do differently. Ask for help. I think we just let pride and ego get in the way sometimes, and we think that we have to. I did do my website by myself, and I'm like, why did I spend? It took me so long, and now I still have to Google every time I want to add something. And I could, I've turned over a lot of things. I've let go of a lot of things, and I think it's so great because when we do let go of the things that aren't necessarily our wheelhouse, we have so much more space to be able to create from our like true self. So
exactly,
that's beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, that's step 2 of the Wealthy Life Method. Evaluate what you really want, which is, kind of basically what we're here doing with this podcast, is like, what is it that you really want? But you can't even open up your awareness to what you really want until you get clear on, what you don't want, what you need to walk away from, the ways that you are trapped intuitively or intellectually, or, with your time or your health, all these ways that we're trapped. As soon as we start to dismantle those ways that we are trapped, we are able to free up so much energy and become more ready for wealth, which leads me to something that I have for your folks, which is my wealth readiness quiz. And it's a really fun quiz you can take in under 5 minutes, and it will give you a score as to what level of wealth readiness that you are at. And there's 3 different levels of wealth readiness. So I would love to have folks who are interested, who resonate with some of the things that I said, or most of what I said. Anybody who feels like I might be a good fit mentor for you, please feel free to take the quiz at quiz.wealthylifementor.com. And if you know that it's time for you to become certified as an intuitive advisor, I am prepping that right now. I don't know when this podcast is coming out. So, circle back around with me after you hear this podcast. You might be hearing this podcast 3 years from now. Circle back around with me if you feel like you'd like to become a certified intuitive advisor, and we'll see if it's a fit for us to play together.
I love that. That will also be on my website in the show notes. So if anyone missed it, then they'll be able to grab it there. So tell me, what bit of advice would you give to my listeners today, just today, to start living this, wealthy life, just to start it? Where would they start?
Well, I think that the first place you want to start is with your imagination.
My favorite
We
part.
talked so much about imagination. Like, really look at how you can dismantle your addiction to scrolling, right? Take some time, stop the world. This is a shamanic technique that I'm trained in the Inca tradition in shamanism. And one of the things that I learned was stopping the world, right? So we got to stop the world and clear the altar of our life in order to open up the space to be able to imagine what else is possible. And everything that we're, trapped in right now has to be looked at and selected if we want to carry it forward with us or if we want to leave it behind us. So, just making those sacred spaces and stopping the world to indulge in your imagination is what I would say would be the first thing that I would recommend for everyone.
Wow. I love imagination. You are definitely a wickedly smart woman, and I am super honored that you have chosen to be here with me today. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to learn more from you. And I'm sure there are so many listeners that will also feel the same way. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Shirley. Grateful. It's my pleasure. Yeah, I'm really grateful too. Thank you. Gratitude's the currency of the universe. Currency is gratitude in action.
There's so much, you have so much wisdom. Thank you. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Get What You Want podcast. If you loved it, please subscribe, share it with others, and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also visit me on my website at www.getwhatyouwantguru.com. Would love to hear from you. Now go create.